At last, somebody has made a film based on William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Kidding, because this is probably like the 50th version of this. Is a new version of Hamlet. This is directed by Aneil Karia. This stars Riz Ahmed as Hamlet with Morfydd Clark. I'm just going to stop it there because I'm going to mangle everybody's name, and I don't want to do that. It has Timothy Spall, who you may know, British actor, Joe Alwyn, who you may know, and Malik, who I've recognized from other things. It is a very interesting take on Hamlet. I went into this really not knowing anything about it. I mean, I know Hamlet. I've seen versions of this. The Kenneth Branagh Hamlet is the one I probably remember best. But it's a film it's a story that's been adapted many, many years in many different forms. And this is very interesting. This is taking Hamlet and placing it into modern day London. And it centers not around a Danish family, but an Indian family who is big into business. Sometimes not necessarily the most honest of business practices. The basic story, if you don't know the story of Hamlet, is that Hamlet, a young guy who has been away from home, living somewhere else, comes back home because his father has passed away to find that his uncle is now marrying his mother. They weren't related. His father's brother is marrying his mother and marrying Hamlet's brother. It gets complicated. Hamlet's father dies. Hamlet's mother is now marrying Hamlet's uncle, and something is rotten in the state of London, England. And that's the basic story. So it's Hamlet is wrestling with seeing something very nefarious. His father's ghost appears to him and says, there's something nefarious, and Hamlet has to decide what to do about it. So this film is contemporarily set, feels very contemporary. It's very much weaves Indian culture into it, British Indian culture into it, and does utilize the original Shakespearean dialogue. Now, I did a little research because it's been a long time since I've experienced any form of Hamlet, and it does streamline the story a lot. So it's not beat for beat. There are characters that I expected to see. There are lines that I expected to hear, or moments that I expected that I did not get in this, and that's fine because this is an adaptation. And as anybody who knows anything about adapting anything, if you do a complete 100% using all the dialogue adaptation of any kind of a book or play, you're looking at multiple hours in the theater. And this is not multiple hours in the theater. I do have to say, call me dumb, many have before, call me just an average kind of guy. When they started speaking and it clicked that they are using Shakespearean dialogue, I went, partly because for a normal person who doesn't know the play already, who doesn't know all the words already, it's hard to get your brain around because it is incredibly obviously well written. It's beautiful, it's poetic, but it's a style of English that hasn't been used for hundreds of years, if it was even used when Shakespeare wrote it. And it's really hard to get your brain around it while the story and pace is rocketing forward. And I remember as a kid reading Shakespeare in high school and thinking, oh, this is kind of really hard to get my brain around what any of this means. But you could kind of read it and reread it and puzzle it out. But it didn't, for me, it didn't flow because it was a struggle to get used to a kind of English I'd never heard before. And then we were taken to see a Shakespeare play, and suddenly it all made sense because you're seeing people acting and the emotion and the scenario that this all takes place in. And maybe you didn't get every word or every line or what it all meant, but you got most of it and you understood what was going on. And that is the case with this version of Hamlet. I will admit that I have AMC A-list, so these things cost me very little to see, and I was really kind of seeing it to kill time. I was curious. I'm like, what's a modern Riz Ahmed take on Hamlet look like? And when they started speaking the Shakespearean dialogue, and I will never say that I have a problem with British accents because I have been deeply immersed in British pop culture for decades, and I know I'm pretty good with any accent. But occasionally, if it's a little mumbly, if the sound recording is a little muffled, or if somebody speaks too fast with an accent, added to the really, you can't not pay attention to it, Shakespearean dialogue, I thought about walking. I was just like, oh God, this might be really hard for me. But after a while, it clicked in. But I will admit, if there was ever a moment where my mind wandered, I was lost. Like I had to click back in. What are they talking about? And who is this? And why do they feel like they do? And what's going on? I had some trouble with it. and I don't think of myself as incredibly unintelligent. There were other people in the theater who seemed to be very into it. What I say about this movie is, if you are totally Shakespeare clueless, this might be hard to get through. It might feel like you want subtitles or cliff notes or a separate audio track going, what he's really saying is this. But if you are into Shakespeare, if you are a Shakespearean scholar, enthusiast, if you know all the words, I was thinking it's going to see Bob Dylan in concert. Bob Dylan has performed the way he has performed live for a while now. And if you're a fan and you know the words that he's supposed to be singing, you'd be like, yeah, that thing he did with Blown in the Wind, I knew it was Blown in the Wind. The person next to me, who was brought here by a friend who's a big fan who doesn't know anything about Bob Dylan, had no idea what he was saying the whole time, but I thought it was great. That might kind of be what this movie is like for some people who are Hamlet fans or neophytes. If you're a fan, you know what's happening and what they're saying, and you can really appreciate the acting and the adaptation and how they bring that very old story into the modern day and into a different culture than you've seen it performed before. Everybody in the movie is good. Like, Riz Ahmed's very good in this, and everybody is. It's just when the dialogue comes rapid or comes mumbled or thrown away, at times I was just like, I don't really know what's being said. I found it interesting to see what was and wasn't included. The iconic to be or not to be performance maybe didn't quite work for me, but it was interesting to see what scenario they put that in. And it was very interesting. And I did say by the end, I'm like, wow, a lot of people dying in this movie. And I was just like, the thing I was thinking in my head is like, more people die in Hamlet than do in Psycho, which is saying a lot. Asterisk, only like 2 people actually die in Psycho. Anyway, this is a very interesting film. I'm very curious to see what others think about this, who are more into Shakespeare, who are more well-versed in the story and the plot. If I'm going to guess some big Shakespeare fans will be disappointed by some of the cuts that were made to this, because to my perception, there's no Rosencrantz and Guildenstern in this. There's no Alas Poor Yorick in this. But there are some very interesting things in this, and it's well made. So, in theaters now, probably not for very long. So find your local multiplex with a lot of screens, or your local art house. And then I always say this because I'm very theatrically focused. It'll be on streaming forever, probably pretty soon. Hamlet